Hi, I'm at Winchester Crown Court. I've come here today because I know one of the defendants who's been accused of violent disorder. So let me be very clear. The individual in question has entered into the hotel in question car park. So you could argue that that's potentially trespassing, but that's what he's done. He's wandered in and he's wandered back out whilst people he didn't know were also there. And potentially these people, the allegation against them is that they've knocked on windows, they've been present. The defendant that I know was present, entered, and then left. And within minutes of that, prior, there'd been 40, 50 people protesting outside the hotel. The individual was contacted last night, which is standard operating procedure for a barrister if things aren't going to go the way they want it to go, and said, you're going to be remanded. If it's a not guilty plea, you're going to be remanded. And then we have what happened this morning with the brief as well. You're going to be remanded. This constant, you are going to prison. Now, the defendant has said, I'm not guilty. I'm standing up for what's right. I'm standing against two-tier judiciary. We've gone into court. 6 out of the 7 who have pleaded guilty have been obviously they're being remanded. They're not being sentenced at a later date. They're going straight to prison today. They're on their way to prison right now. The one individual that said, I am not guilty and I'm standing up for myself, he was told he was going to be remanded. He's going to prison. He's been given bail. He's been given bail. And why has he been given bail? I've just been in the courtroom and I've heard the judge. Due to the enormity of cases, due to the pressure, due to the media sensationalism, they are throwing people in prison. The moment you say guilty, you are going to prison. But if you want the CCTV evidence, if you want that assessed, if you want people to know your story, if you want to say no to two-tier judiciary, if you want to stand up to two-tier policing, you have the opportunity to say, I'm not guilty, I'm not going to take your offer, which says, if I plead guilty now, I'll get less time. 6 out of the 7 now are on their way to prison. And this one individual has said, I'm going to stand up to you. No matter what the consequence is, I'm innocent.
On a personal note, I feel absolutely sick to my stomach with regards to what I've witnessed at Winchester Crown Court this morning. The barrister phoned the defendant that I know last night to manage expectations. If you plead not guilty or if you enter no plea, you're going to be remanded. In what world does that happen where he's committed no violent crime? The CCTV footage is incredibly questionable with regards to implicating criminality. The case is far more complicated than that. The individual was present, but he didn't commit any crimes. Then this morning, again, you've got to make a decision. What do you want to do? Do you want to enter no plea? Do you want to say guilty, you're not guilty? Essentially, either way, you're being remanded. You're going to prison. It's just, I'm sick to my stomach. A 65-year-old man has also just been, his wife was there, his children were there. 7 families, 6 out of the 7, 6 families, mothers, ordinary concerned citizens, their brothers and sisters, the sons and daughters, they're all heartbroken now. They're all devastated. These are people that you know, that I know. They're your neighbours. They're the people you chat to, work colleagues. These are ordinary people who haven't engaged in any criminality. They were simply there at the time. If you're throwing Molotovs, if you're striking matches, if you're setting fire to things, if you're guilty of rape, murder, the most heinous of crimes, if you've hurt somebody, prison could well be on the cards, and rightly so. But what we're witnessing here, this two-tier judiciary, Britain is broken. It's absolutely devastating what I've seen. One individual who I knew, with my knowledge of the legal system in the UK, if someone hadn't reached out to me on Twitter, who I randomly met on Saturday, and said, Nick, are you aware of what's happening to this individual in this particular borough of the UK? If he hadn't have reached out to me randomly, I wouldn't have known to have been there this morning. If I didn't have my knowledge of the legal system, I wouldn't have been able to sit down with the individual opposite the barrister, and I say to the barrister, why aren't you doing your job? Why am I having to do your job for you? I was there to counsel that individual. If you're not guilty and you've seen the CCTV footage, if you're not guilty and you know that everyone's just being thrown in prison right now, just a virtue signal to the two-tier governance, under communist Keir Starmer. Stand by your conviction, stand by your own volition, stand by courage. And ultimately, it has to be your decision, I said to the individual. But ultimately, if you're not guilty, take your chance. The barrister said, no matter what happens, you're going to prison right now. You're not going to get bail, you're going in. I challenge that. Why was I having to do the barrister's job? I'm sick to my stomach. If someone hadn't reached out to me to say, go be there, if I didn't have the knowledge I had, right now, he probably would have folded. He would have said, I just want to get this over and done with. I'm terrified, I'm scared, I just want it over and done with. I'm going to plead guilty, so I'm going to get a lesser sentence, because it's called credit. So you've said I'm guilty, therefore you get a lesser sentence. And then, of course, you're out, you serve 50%, and the government's announced it's only going to be 40%. So it's a good deal. Take that deal. Just say yes, go to prison. He's not guilty. And it was only because I was there challenging the barrister to say to her and to say to him, you must decide. But why are you saying you're guilty to something you're not guilty of? I'm sick to my stomach. Over 1,000 arrests, over 500 charges, and I believe over 100 people now have gone to prison. And the vast majority of those people who have gone to prison are going to prison because they've said, I'm guilty, I'm scared, I want to do the right thing, Stockholm Syndrome, please just make this as light as possible. But they don't need to be in jail. The people that did throw Molotovs, the people that did strike matches, the people that did hurt police, well, it is what it is. But for the vast majority of people, they're not involved in criminality. They were simply present. And two-tier judiciary and communist tactics, like what two-tier Keir's coming out with at the moment in terms of his approach, is to paralyse you with fear to the point now where you're not only silenced or cancelled, but you'll be bullied into submission and end up sitting in a jail cell. And that with the rising threat of Islamist gangs with forced conversions and also Islamic extremist violence as well. I'm absolutely beside myself. I'm sick to my stomach. 6 people have just gone to prison. The guy that hasn't is standing by his conviction saying, I'm not guilty, because good people were there to say, you might not be guilty. Why are you saying you're guilty? He's walked free. Last night, the barrister phoned him, you're going to prison. This morning, you're going to prison. Few people were around him saying, stand by your conviction. You're not guilty. He said, I'm not guilty. Pleaded not guilty. Now he's on bail. He's out. He's not in prison right now. The other 6, right now, they're being checked into a prison somewhere. Why? If you're guilty of a crime and it was violent, it was heinous, you deserve to go to prison, you deserve to go to prison. But if you don't deserve to go to prison, or if you're not guilty, stop saying you're guilty. Just absolute disgrace.